Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside of Naruto, one of the big three. He gets reborn and he has to create a genius persona. What is he gonna do with his genius persona inside of Naruto?
His peers. But he still underestimated it, especially in the last month or so, ever since this child defeated Kakashi, the genius who was famous throughout the village, at the Ninja Academy. It seems as if some invisible shackles have been completely broken. His understanding and progress in swordsmanship were incredibly rapid, progressing by leaps and bounds. Techniques that previously required repeated instruction were now grasped instantly, and he could even apply them to other situations. Haiji Yamashita didn't know what caused this transformative change. Perhaps it was the breakthrough in confidence brought about by that victory, or perhaps it was the culmination of years of hard work and preparation. He had no way of knowing, but he could see the result. The young man before him had indeed reached the limit of what he could guide him in the way of the sword. Upon hearing this, Shinichi slowly sheathed his sword with meticulous precision. He faced Yamashita Hideharu and bowed respectfully. "Thank you so much for your careful guidance over the past year." Haiji Yamashita waved his hand, a rare gentleness appearing on his face. "It's your own hard work and talent. Remember, there's no end to the way of the sword. You're just beginning. The path ahead is yours to walk." Zhen stood up, her gaze calm and resolute. "Yes, teacher, I understand." Shinichi didn't leave immediately. Instead, he pondered for a moment and then respectfully asked again, "Master, if I wish to further my studies in swordsmanship and delve deeper into its intricacies, where should I seek guidance?" His question not only concerned personal cultivation, but also subtly explored the future advancement direction of the swordsman profession. The swordsmanship system inherited from Konoha is profound enough to keep you studying for a long time, Yamashita Haiji said first. He paused and then added, "However, if we talk about the orthodoxy and purity of swordsmanship, the universally recognized Holy Land is still the land of iron. It is the land of samurai. If you have the opportunity to go there in the future and see it for yourself, it will definitely benefit your swordsmanship." The land of iron. Shinichi silently thought to himself, if Konoha's swordsmanship system cannot meet the further advancement needs of the swordsman class, then the future direction may really point to that neutral samurai country. Of course, that's a long way off. He is currently a student at the Konoha Ninja Academy and a future ninja, so his actions will inevitably be subject to many restrictions. Making a note of this for the time being, Shinichi changed the subject and said sincerely, "Teacher, to express my gratitude for your meticulous guidance over the past year, I would like to hold a small thank you banquet tomorrow afternoon at the Aji no Takumi restaurant in the village. I wonder if you would do me the honor of attending." The gratitude towards the teacher is genuine, but this Thanksgiving gathering clearly carries a deeper purpose. Shinichi was well aware of the customs of this world. Just like in real Japan, events like completing an apprenticeship tended to be simple celebrations with a sense of ritual and cohesion between master and apprentice or within a small circle, simply to express their feelings. But what he's going to do is completely different. Drawing inspiration from the customs of his past life, he planned to turn this gratitude gathering into a large-scale, banquet-style social event. He not only wanted to invite Mr. Yamashita and his fellow students at the Kendo dojo, but also planned to send out invitations, or at least spread the word to gather people from all walks of life he knew and had contact with. The director of the orphanage who raised him and the children he knew, the blacksmith's master and apprentice who had taken care of him, the owner and colleagues at the Aji no Takumi restaurant where he used to work, his classmates from school. He wanted to use this lively and unique banquet to clearly and unambiguously convey a message, embedding it into the understanding of every participant and even bystanders who heard about it. Shinichi Higashina has officially graduated from the Yamashita Kendo Dojo and become a recognized, fully fledged, and officially recognized swordsman. This will be an efficient seeding of knowledge, a crucial step in his transformation from swordsmanship apprentice to swordsman, and another precise operation in his proactive management of his persona and leveraging the upgrade of his vocabulary. Hosting such a large-scale banquet would naturally cost a considerable amount of money. But money wasn't really a big problem for Shinichi at that moment. As a registered orphan in Konoha, he receives a basic living allowance every month. After entering the Ninja Academy, he also consistently receives a considerable scholarship based on his top grades. Of course, these are all minor issues. The real key point is that not long after he enrolled, he formally submitted a student loan application to the school, citing the need to purchase more professional training equipment and ensure his nutrition to maintain high-intensity training. The process originally required time for approval and had limits on the amount involved. However, when the loan was finally approved and dispersed to him a few days ago, Shinichi was somewhat surprised. The amount far exceeded his expectations and could even be described as quite extravagant. It can only be said that the effects of defeating Kakashi have taken hold again. Okay. Chapter 14. Ninjutsu Application. 3 days later, the new semester began as scheduled. But on the school opening ceremony field, one figure that everyone admired was missing, Kakashi Hatake. It wasn't until the ceremony ended that the news gradually spread. Kakashi had officially submitted his application to graduate early to the Ninja Academy before the start of the semester, and he was preparing for the graduation exam in 3 days. It was said that even the third Hokage would be attending the exam in person. This is a major event in the Ninja Academy, and even in the entire Hidden Leaf Village. If he succeeds, Kakashi will break the record for the fastest and youngest graduation in Konoha's history. Because the rumors about White Tooth circulated for a very short time, his suicide was not made public. Therefore, in the eyes of most teachers and students, Kakashi's sudden action was probably because he was defeated by Shinichi Higashino and was stimulated. So he used this method to prove that his talent was not obscured and that he was still stronger. Of course, some observant onlookers felt a little puzzled. If it was just to prove that he was stronger, why not just launch a more formal revenge battle against Shinichi Higashino? Why choose the path of graduating early? Perhaps geniuses always possess a pride and a logic of action that are difficult for ordinary people to understand. Regardless of the reason, Kakashi's graduation controversy inevitably dragged Shinichi Higashino, who defeated him, into the vortex of public opinion. While people were discussing Kakashi, speculations and discussions also began to circulate, such as, will Shinichi, who defeated Kakashi, also make a move? And will he also apply for early graduation? Shinichi paid no attention to all the commotion. As soon as the opening ceremony ended, he went straight to the teacher's office and found his homeroom teacher, Matsumoto Fumio. What? Inside the office, Matsumoto Fumio's face was filled with astonishment. You don't mean you're also thinking of applying for early graduation, do you? He couldn't help but misunderstand, as his student immediately claimed to have mastered the school curriculum and hoped to learn more systematic and in-depth ninjutsu. This sounds like the prelude to applying for graduation. Shinichi, please don't act impulsively. Teacher Matsumoto quickly dissuaded him. You're still too young. Don't just copy what Kakashi does. While Shinichi Higashino's victory over Kakashi Hatake was undoubtedly a stunning triumph, it does not mean that he now possesses all the necessary abilities of a full-fledged ninja. Kakashi Hatake, with his family's extensive chakra tradition and mastery of all 5 elemental chakra natures, possesses a wider range of countermeasures and a higher tactical ceiling when facing enemies or environmental obstacles of any element. We've all seen your potential, and that's precisely why we need to proceed with caution and prudence. Seeing that Shainishi's expression was a bit strange, Matsumoto-sensei softened his tone. You misunderstand, teacher. Shinichi shook his head and explained. I don't want to graduate early. I just want to ask, through what formal channels and under what conditions can I access more systematic and in-depth ninjutsu training? You want to learn more advanced techniques? Yes. What specifically do you want to learn? Shadow clone technique. Shadow clone technique. Matsumoto-sensei was slightly surprised. Instead of asking Shinichi how he knew about the shadow clone technique, which this diligent student must have found in the Ninja Academy's library or the village library, he asked, why do you want to learn this ninjutsu? It's like this, teacher. I always feel like I don't have enough time to train. While researching, I learned that the second Hokage created the shadow clone technique, which can create clones with physical forms. These clones can act and fight independently, and their memories and experiences return to the original body after they are released. Shainishi's tone was frank. I was thinking, since experience and memories can be regained, is it possible for this technique to be used to assist cultivation? Theoretically, if used properly, wouldn't it be equivalent to indirectly extending the effective cultivation or learning time? For cultivation, Mr. Matsumoto had a sudden inspiration. This idea was quite in line with the child's consistent diligence. It is indeed a creative idea, but he first gave his approval, then changed the subject and pointed out the key point. The shadow clone technique consumes a lot of chakra. The clone's memories and experiences will return, but the fatigue and burden will also accumulate. Moreover, it only brings back memories and experiences. The actual training results, such as the increase in physical strength and the refinement of chakra, still need to be achieved step by the original body. So that's how it is. Shanishi's face showed a perfectly timed look of realization. He was certainly aware of these limitations, but if he acted as if he knew everything, it would only make the teacher lose the sense of accomplishment in teaching. Teacher, I understand the risks and limitations you mentioned. Thank you very much for reminding me. Shainishi's gaze hardened once more. Even so, it still plays a significant supporting role in certain aspects. For example, I can hone my taijutsu skills on my own, but shadow clones can help me learn more theoretical knowledge, summarize coping strategies in different situations, and even simulate some low-intensity chakra control exercises, which can greatly improve my learning and summarizing efficiency. Then, teacher, through what means can I learn the shadow clone technique? Upon hearing this, Mr. Matsumoto frowned slightly, revealing a somewhat troubled expression. If he really wanted to learn a D rank or even a regular C rank ninjutsu as the homeroom teacher and a chunin, he might be able to arrange for him to give some private guidance, which would be considered as nurturing an outstanding student. However, the shadow clone technique is different. It was developed by the second Hokage and is a highly practical B rank ninjutsu used only by family members. Typically, one needs to become a formal ninja, accumulate merits by performing missions, and then apply to the relevant departments in the village as a reward to obtain the qualification to study. Alternatively, a senior ninja with sufficient authority and strength may instruct the team members after reporting to the village based on their individual circumstances. He, Matsumoto Fumio, was merely a chunin instructor. Within his authority, he did not have the direct authority to grant students B-rank ninjutsu. After quickly weighing the options in his mind, Mr. Matsumoto did not directly reject this diligent and studious student. After a moment's thought, he proposed a compromise. Shainishi, how about this? You go back first and write a formal application, explaining in detail your reasons for wanting to learn the shadow clone technique, as well as your understanding of its risks and your usage plan. I will submit it to the school's academic affairs office for you, and then the school will forward it to the relevant departments in the village. He paused, softening his tone, and offered a guarantee. Of course, the approval of such applications requires consideration of many factors, and there's no guarantee of approval if the village doesn't approve it. Teacher, within my authority, I can teach you some other practical C rank or D rank ninjutsu. Although they may not fit your specific ideas as well as shadow clone jutsu, they will still be of real help in improving your strength. What do you think? This was the best path and promise he could secure for his student within his capabilities. Upon hearing this, Shainishi's face showed gratitude. He took a half step back and bowed solemnly to Mr. Matsumoto. I understand. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. I will prepare my application as soon as I get back. Chapter 15. Rain Curtain. 3 more days passed. That afternoon, the school bell had long since rung, but the campus was unusually crowded with more students than usual. The crowd whispered among themselves, their eyes all turning toward the classroom designated as a special examination room. Today is the day Kakashi Hatake takes his early graduation exam. Living up to his reputation as a genius, 5-year-old Kakashi Hatake passed all the assessments with an impeccable performance and officially graduated from the Ninja Academy, breaking the record for the youngest graduate in Konoha's history. After the exam, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was present to observe the exam, personally placed the Konoha headband, representing a genin's status, on Kakashi's forehead. Many people gathered at the entrance of the examination hall, and Shinichi was there too. The door opened. Kakashi emerged with a brand new headband on his forehead. He showed no joy at passing the test or breaking the record, nor any excitement at wearing the headband or becoming a ninja. The face, mostly covered by a mask, had empty, lifeless eyes, like a puppet. He ignored any classmates who gathered around to chat or offer congratulations, as if they didn't exist. He simply lowered his head slightly, walked through the automatically parting crowd, and silently walked away step by step. His figure appeared exceptionally lonely and heavy in the long shadows cast by the setting sun. Shinichi watched the small, backlit figure gradually disappear into the distance, his face expressionless, his thoughts unknown. After Kakashi left, the students who had gathered gradually dispersed. Shinichi turned around, joined the flow of people leaving school, and started his way home. The sky over Konoha remained azure, and life in the village seemed peaceful and normal, but Shinichi knew that this peace would not last long. 4 years. At most, only 4 years. Although the original timeline in his memory was vague and chaotic, he could still make a rough estimate through some definite nodes. For example, most of their class, Sarutobi Asuma, Yuhei Kurenai, Shizune, and even Obito Uchiha, who was a complete failure, graduated at the age of 9. He himself will start school a year later, at which time he will be 10 years old. This means that Konoha's graduation policy will inevitably change in 4 years at most. At that time, some major change must have occurred. Even if the Third Shinobi World War had not yet fully broken out, the situation must have suddenly become tense, causing the Konoha leadership to have a strong sense of crisis, and thus approve the graduation of a batch of students ahead of schedule to replenish manpower. In other words, he has at most 4 more years of relatively stable time growing up on campus. 4 years later, whether or not he directly steps onto the most brutal battlefield, he will inevitably begin a true ninja career intertwined with blood and fire. A sense of urgency, like the silent second hand, began to strike clearly in my heart. Walking in the afterglow of the setting sun, Shinichi's mind raced, constantly planning his future path. Creating a persona and generating and upgrading keywords remain the most core and fundamental path to improving strength, and this has never wavered. The efficiency of generating and upgrading entries depends fundamentally on the breadth, depth, and authority of external knowledge. However, There is actually little difference in efficiency between studying at the Ninja Academy and becoming a genin immediately after graduation, and it could even be said that the former is worse. The real turning point is becoming a renowned ninja. Only when he possesses a unique title that resonates throughout the ninja world, like the White Fang of Konoha, the legendary Sannin, and the Yellow Flash, will it mean that his existence is known, discussed, feared, or worshipped by countless ninjas and forces throughout the ninja world. That would be a qualitative change in the scope of cognition, at which point the speed of word generation and upgrading might truly explode. So in these 4 years, Shinichi needs to do his best to increase the number and level of his citations. This was not only to ensure that he would start his ninja career at a high level and not perish early on, but also to shorten the time it would take him to become a renowned ninja. At the same time, in addition to the entries themselves, how to effectively utilize existing resources to access and obtain higher-level inheritance and guidance has also been put on the agenda. His gaze fell on his two special classmates, Takashi Ishizuka and Shizune. Over the past few months, thanks to his gentle nature, consistently top grades, and the subtle help of the affinity attribute, he has gotten along quite well with his two deskmates. His interactions with Takashi Ishizuka were the most direct and straightforward. This dark-skinned, strong, and cheerful boy was simple-minded and valued hard work and perseverance. Shinichi's solid performance in physical skills and his diligent attitude suited his taste very well. The two often sparred and exchanged martial arts tips, their relationship having long surpassed that of ordinary classmates, carrying a sense of mutual respect and companionship. It seems like a viable path to get in touch with Chen Beijan, the martial arts master known as the Dragon God of Konoha, through Long. His relationship with Shizune is one of familiarity and tacit understanding that grows gradually over time. Shizune is somewhat lazy and introverted, but she has keen observation skills and a kind heart. As her deskmate, Shinichi's diligence, composure, and occasional displays of reliability gradually earned her trust and a slight fondness. Now she occasionally mentions that unreliable Tsunade-sama. Relationships are a bridge, but how to cross that bridge, gain trust, and then receive guidance or instruction requires more sophisticated design and a grasp of timing. 4 years is neither a short nor a long time. He must develop a more precise and efficient plan that incorporates the accumulation of keywords, the leap in strength, and the building of key connections, and promotes them in parallel. Shinichi slowed his pace and turned his gaze away from the gloomy sky. Lead-grey clouds hung low, and the air was filled with the earthy smell and stuffiness characteristic of rain. It's going to rain, he thought, quickening his pace home. However, just as he turned a street corner, his heart skipped a beat without warning. Like a vague pull, an inexplicable feeling, he involuntarily stopped and turned his gaze toward the west side of the village, towards that quiet cemetery. He pondered for a moment, then turned and changed direction, heading towards the cemetery shrouded in an increasingly gloomy sky. Meanwhile, at the Konoha cemetery, lead-like clouds almost pressed down on the treetops, and the wind began to howl, swirling fallen leaves and dust on the ground. In front of a relatively new tombstone, a small figure has been standing for who knows how long. Kakashi. He remained silent and motionless, the wind before the rain ruffling the hair on his forehead and his brand-new ninja headband, but he seemed oblivious. The eyes above the mask stared blankly ahead, devoid of any strong emotion, a near-dead silence, as if all feelings had been buried along with the person beneath the tombstone. He was completely immersed in his own world, or rather, immersed in a silent void. Boom! A pale bolt of lightning tore through the sky, followed by a thunderclap that seemed to make the earth tremble. The long-accumulated torrential rain finally poured down in an instant. Large raindrops pelted down, instantly enveloping the world in a white curtain of rain and deafening noise. The wind whipped up raindrops, lashing at tombstones, trees, and everything on the ground. Kakashi remained standing there, seemingly intending to let the cold rain soak him through, as if the numbness of his body could confirm or dispel something within him. However, the expected sensation of rain hitting my body did not materialize. A relatively quiet shadow enveloped him, and a dark umbrella, which had somehow opened above his head, shielded him from the howling wind and rain. Chapter 16: Mission or Companion. Kakashi's empty eyes twitched, almost imperceptibly. He slowly turned his head. Half a step behind him, Shinichi Higashino stood quietly, holding an ordinary dark umbrella to shield him from the torrential rain. Shinichi didn't look at Kakashi. His gaze was also fixed on the brand-new tombstone in front of him, his eyes calm and profound. You. Kakashi's lips twitched slightly beneath his mask, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he said nothing. He turned his gaze back to his father's tombstone, as if that was the only world he could anchor himself to. Shinichi didn't speak, offer any comfort, or ask any questions. He simply stood there silently, providing temporary, wordless shelter for his former rival, who perhaps needed an umbrella more at that moment. The rain lashed down violently over the cemetery, and in this corner, only the dense sound of rain hitting the umbrella and the frozen silence between the two boys could be heard. For ninjas. After a long while, Kakashi's voice pierced through the rain, hoarse and dry. Is completing the mission more important, or protecting our comrades? Upon hearing this, Shinichi remained silent for a moment, his gaze still fixed on the cold tombstone, before slowly speaking. The first Hokage was born in the Warring States period, a time of frequent wars. In that era, ninja clans fought each other, and children were forced to go to the battlefield. Their lives were as short as morning dew. The sacrifice of comrades was a common occurrence that happened every moment. Even someone as strong as the first Hokage, who was later revered as the god of shinobi, experienced the pain of being unable to protect those he cared about during that cruel era. Shinichi's voice was soft. The documents say that the young first Hokage lost many of his relatives and personally experienced the helplessness of seeing his loved ones disappear before his eyes. It is because of this that he understands the difficulty and preciousness of protection more deeply than anyone else. Therefore, the First Lord devoted everything to creating a different world, a world where children don't have to rush to the battlefield at a young age, and where comrades can entrust each other with their backs. The core of this is what was later known as the Will of Fire, cherishing the village, protecting comrades, and safeguarding the next generation that will be passed down. You mean your comrades are more important? Kakashi turned his head, his sharp gaze piercing Shinichi. Shinichi still didn't give a direct answer to this either-or question. He continued. The reason why ninjas, as a profession and a system, can function and why mission rules are strictly followed is because they collectively maintain the order and credibility that allows the village to survive. Completing missions and protecting the interests of the commissioners is to maintain the reputation and peace of Konoha, which is also to protect the village and all the comrades living in the village. So, you think the mission is more important? Kakashi asked in a low voice. No, Kakashi. Shinichi gently shook his head, shifting his gaze from the tombstone for the first time to the rain-blurred cemetery beside him, as if looking towards a more distant future. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know. I have never experienced the desperate situation that Lord Sakumo faced, nor have I ever borne such a heavy burden of choice. Perhaps only when I am truly pushed to that point, in that split second, will I know what my instincts will choose. Before that, any judgment that is not my concern is rash. However, Shinichi changed his tone, his voice calm yet firm. Before that day may come, I will do everything in my power to do one thing. He turned his head and looked Kakashi straight in the eyes, saying, Strive to become stronger. strong enough to avoid being forced into a two-choice dilemma as much as possible, strong enough to struggle and find a way to complete the mission and protect all my companions even in dire straits, strong enough that perhaps one day in the future I will have enough power and wisdom to influence or even change certain rules so that I, my cherished companions, and our next generation can face fewer of these cruel predicaments. That's what the first Hokage did. He may not have fundamentally changed the inherently cruel nature of the ninja profession, but he was using all his strength to try to build a framework that could protect what is important as much as possible and push the world in a better direction. And the second and third Hokage, who inherited his will, as well as countless nameless predecessors in Konoha, are all doing their best in their respective positions. I don't know if Lord Sakumo's choice is right or wrong, because I wasn't involved. But I do know that if we just stay in the debate about mission versus comrades, we won't change anything. The only way forward is to become stronger than we are now, strong enough to be qualified to rewrite the premise of the problem. What if you faced this predicament before you had enough power? Kakashi's tone suddenly became somewhat aggressive, and before Shinichi could answer, he quickly added as if to block all escape routes. Imagine you are the captain now, and I and a few others are your team members. Our mission is to escort a crucial piece of classified information back to Konoha. Right now, we are being hunted by the enemy and are in dire straits. As the captain, if you choose to abandon the mission, it will bring great losses to the village. If you choose to complete the mission, you must leave one or even several team members behind to cover the retreat. In order to prevent the possibility of intelligence leakage, you may even have to kill teammates who may be captured with your own hands. His gaze was fixed on Shinichi, his tone filled with urgency. Shinichi Higashino, tell me, what will you do? I'll cover the rear. Shinichi's voice wasn't loud, but it was resolute. If that day ever comes, the one who covers for our teammates and takes the greatest risks should of course be me, the captain. He looked into Kakashi's eyes and said clearly, word by word, "And you, Kakashi, from this moment on, you are the captain. The intelligence will be entrusted to you for protection, and you will lead everyone back." For a moment, the air under the umbrella seemed to freeze. After a long pause, Kakashi suddenly snapped out of his daze and sneered, You're still just avoiding the question." Before he could finish speaking, as if he could no longer bear the space under the umbrella and the person in front of him, he suddenly turned around, plunged into the torrential rain, and ran away without looking back, quickly disappearing into the grey rain curtain. Shinichi didn't chase after him. He remained standing in the same spot, but the subtle, fleeting feeling that had been vaguely present since he arrived at the cemetery not only did not dissipate, but instead became clearer and stronger. Auspicious sign, green. Your fortune is beginning to take on a mysterious stage. You may occasionally sense subtle auspicious omens and promising signs of development. Just as he had anticipated, after hosting a lively, banquet-style thank-you feast, unusual in this world, his swordsmanship apprentice quickly leveled up to swordsman, and he also gained a chance to draw a green attribute. The auspicious omen was the new term drawn, one that seemed to relate to the mysterious and esoteric aspects of fortune. However, when he first obtained this entry, Shinichi didn't notice any changes at all until just now. Chapter 17. The Importance of the Third Generation. I'll cover the rear. Of course, I, as the captain, will be responsible for providing cover. Of course, the bait will be provided by me, the Hokage. Kakashi, from now on you are the captain. Monkey, from this moment on you are the Hokage. The intelligence is now in your hands to protect. The village is now in your care. In the Hokage's office, the boy's clear and firm voice, coming from the crystal ball, uttered those familiar words. A vivid and intense image, etched deep into the soul of the third Hokage, suddenly surged forth. In that instant, the calm yet resolute profile of the black-haired boy in the rain was strikingly similar to the face of the teacher he had last looked back at in his memory. A profound sense of disorientation overwhelmed the third Hokage, as if the barrier of time had been breached at that moment. After a long while, he slowly, extremely slowly, took a breath, closed his eyes, and calmed the turbulent waves churning within him. She was sensible from a young age, grew up in an orphanage, and took the initiative to help with chores and take care of younger children. He is friendly, cares about his companions, runs errands for the elderly in the neighborhood, helps his neighbors, and gets along well with his classmates. Grateful for the kindness shown to him, he donated his meager earnings from his work to the orphanage that had raised him and held a thank you banquet for his swordsmanship teacher. Information about that child flashed through the mind of the third generation like fragments. A moment later, the third Hokage opened his eyes again, his gaze regaining its usual depth and clarity. His gaze fell on the desk, where an application report that had just been delivered that afternoon was placed, a formal document from a Ninja Academy student applying to learn the shadow clone technique. He picked up his pen and smoothly wrote two large characters. Approve. He paused, feeling that this was still not enough. So below approved, he added another line of comment. In addition to the regular ninjutsu library access, a number of practical B-rank and C-rank ninjutsu may be made available for them to choose from and learn, as an encouragement. The specific list will be determined by the Academic Affairs Office in consultation with their instructors. After writing this sentence, he pondered for a few seconds, feeling that it was still insufficient. Additionally, if the student encounters any difficulties during their studies, they can apply through their instructor to have a suitable person provide regular or specialized guidance. I will take care of this matter. With the final stroke of his pen, the third Hokage gently placed the report aside, his gaze once again turning to the gradually subsiding rain outside the window. Aye. Some time later, it was the weekend. The fourth training ground of Konoha was bathed in the soft light of dawn. Shinichi is doing basic physical training, push-ups. His movements were precise and steady, each sinking and rising accompanied by a clear rhythm of exertion. Sweat dripped down his chin and neck, leaving dark stains on the ground beneath him. At this moment, he was not carrying the huge stone as before. Instead, he was wearing a dark-colored weighted garment that fit his body, and several metal blocks with tiny runes were also tied to his limbs and waist. This was a professional weighted gear that he carefully selected from a ninja tool shop, similar to the style that Lee later wore. Realizing how demanding the conditions for generating blue-level keywords were, requiring a shocking effect that would impact the entire Hidden Leaf village and potentially require the approval of influential key figures, he adjusted his strategy. Exaggerated behaviors to grab attention are no longer the priority. Efficiency is now the key. These devices, which can apply load more evenly and scientifically, are more effective for his current physical training. Scattered around him were 7 or 8 figures that looked exactly like him and dressed exactly like him, shadow clones. These shadow clones are either practicing chakra control by treading water, practicing swordsmanship with longswords, or studying a scroll. For Shinichi, who now possesses the genius attribute that brings a leap in all-round learning efficiency, the quick wit attribute that enhances the speed of thought processing, and the Ninja Academy student attribute that slightly enhances his ninja abilities. After receiving the scroll, he learned how to use it after just one look. Chakra originates from the fusion of physical and mental energy. Shinichi's body and mind, especially his body, are already quite formidable thanks to the enhancements from various attributes. Therefore, if he goes all out, he can create more than 10 shadow clones, reaching slightly more than half of the maximum number of shadow clones allowed by this ninjutsu. Note: but that would be too much of a burden. In order to achieve a more lasting and efficient effect in his cultivation, he is currently only maintaining a number of 7 or 8. Everything is progressing according to plan, and in some aspects, it has even exceeded expectations. Not long ago, he received an official notification from the school that his application to learn the shadow clone technique had been approved. When he received the ninjutsu scroll, he discovered that it contained more than just the shadow clone technique. The scroll also included several other practical leaf village jutsu and sword techniques, as well as a B rank and several C rank fire-style ninjutsu. This made Shinichi realize that his actions at the cemetery that day must have been observed by the third Hokage, especially his last words, which were completely consistent with the core of the second Hokage's last words, which must have deeply touched the Hokage. Therefore, his application was not only approved smoothly, but he also received some extra benefits. Over the years, through various actions, Jenny has not only created an entry for the word, but has also carefully crafted an image. Mature and sensible, kind, hardworking and grateful. Such an orphan genius with a clean background, impeccable character, and seemingly pure and aspiring nature would undoubtedly appeal to the Konoha leadership. Even someone like Danzo Shimura might inwardly scoff at such naivete, but he would never deny that his subordinates or friends were this reliable, controllable, and pure in their beliefs. Even bad people hope that the people around them are good people. In retrospect, this long-term image management was undoubtedly successful, as it convinced the third Hokage to make him a key figure in his development. Just as they discovered and nurtured Minato Namikaze back then, the Konoha leadership was happy to see and support such a loyal and upright genius, bringing him into their ranks. Let's focus the upgrade on resilience next. While doing push-ups, he focused his attention on the resilience attribute on his personal panel. Resilience, white. Your physical endurance and recovery are superior to that of ordinary people. You can recover from blows faster and have a higher pain tolerance. From now on, the morning stone-carrying training at school will be replaced by his shadow clones conducting public, high-intensity resistance training on his main body, so that every student who comes to school in the morning can see his figure gritting his teeth and enduring attacks, yet standing firm time and time again. At the same time, the foodie attribute, which allows for the rapid replenishment of energy through food, also has significant upgrade potential. Perhaps it can be used to intentionally consume large amounts of food during lunch breaks or meditation breaks. They also keep an eye out for the occasional competitive eating contests held in the village and participate whenever they have the chance, thus projecting their amazing appetite and ability to eat a lot. With his thoughts clearing, he completed the last set of push-ups, slowly stood up, and glanced at the shadow clones still busy on the training field. Aye. Chapter 18, 2.5 years. 2.5 years later, at Konoha's fourth training ground. Bang, bang, bang. The rapid and solid sounds of fists and feet colliding rang out in quick succession. Two figures in the arena crossed, separated, and collided again at an extremely fast speed. Their movements were clean and neat, and the strong winds they generated stirred up fine dust on the ground. One of the figures was dark-skinned and burly, with a fierce and powerful attack. It was Ishizuka Takashi. The other was shrewd and composed, with a rigorous and methodical approach in his responses. It was naturally Higashino Shinichi. This kid's physique is really extraordinary. Off the field, a short, stocky middle-aged man with round sunglasses and a somewhat comical demeanor was stroking his chin, deep in thought. He is none other than Chen Beijan, hailed as Konoha's strongest taijutsu ninja and nicknamed Konoha Dragon God. On the field, Ryu's offensive became increasingly fierce, seemingly trying to suppress with strength, but Shinichi's response remained methodical. His defense was watertight, and his occasional counterattacks, seizing gaps, were precise and effective, forcing Ryu to return to defense. It's about time to end this. This kid is about to get serious. Chen Beijun keenly sensed the subtle changes in Zhenyi's aura and rhythm. Sure enough, the next moment, the instant that Ji Kailong landed a heavy punch, Shenish's foot slipped unpredictably, cutting into the opponent's midline, which was slightly sluggish due to the exertion of force. His right hand transformed from a palm into a finger, and with lightning speed, he lightly touched a certain spot between Ji Kailong's chest and abdomen. Takashi Ishizuka groaned, feeling his breath suddenly catch in his throat, his gathered power instantly dissipating, and he immediately lost his footing. Shinichi didn't miss the opportunity and seized the moment with a simple sweeping leg. Boom! His sturdy body lost its balance and fell heavily backward to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Cough! Ha ha! Ryu lay on the ground, catching his breath, then laughed, showing no sign of frustration. Shinichi, you're still so strong. I thought my move just now would at least force you to retreat. A smile appeared on Shinichi's face, his breathing steady. He stepped forward and reached out his hand to Ryu, who was lying on the ground. You've improved a lot, Ryu. Long chuckled, grabbed Shinichi's hand, and leaped up, brushing the dirt off his clothes with undiminished fighting spirit. Next time, we'll continue after school starts in a few days. Maybe. There's no time left, Takashi. Shinichi gently shook his head. No time. Long was stunned and didn't react. Kid, are you planning to apply for early graduation? A slightly hoarse but powerful voice came from the side. Chen Beijun, wearing sunglasses, had taken a few steps closer. He crossed his arms, and his gaze behind the sunglasses seemed to be fixed on Zhenyi. Zhenyi turned to Chen Beijun and bowed slightly respectfully. Yes, Teacher Chen, that's exactly what I was thinking. The close relationship with Takashi over the years has indeed played the role that Shinichi expected. About a year ago, when he was sparring with Long at the training ground, Chen Beijun happened to see them. After that, the Konoha Taijutsu expert seemed to take notice of him, occasionally offering seemingly casual comments after watching a match, pointing out minor flaws in his power exertion or footwork. The frequency of such guidance gradually increased, and the content became more in-depth. They even taught him some physical techniques. Although Chen Beijun never explicitly mentioned taking on apprentices, what he taught far exceeded the scope of what a senior would typically teach a junior. Zhenyi was fully aware of the situation and always treated him with the respect due to a disciple, with a humble and sincere attitude. That's true. Chen Beijun nodded, his tone calm but with the certainty of someone who's been there. At your current level, staying at the Ninja Academy won't teach you anything new. It might even limit your growth. Going out to experience real missions and hone your combat skills will be more beneficial for you. Shinichi, you're graduating early. Takashi finally understood, his eyes lighting up with a surge of excitement. Me too. Let's graduate together. Graduating early, my ass. Chen Beijun interrupted rudely, stepping forward and giving Long a solid thud on the head, cursing. Your cultivation is still far from sufficient, and you're already thinking about graduating. Ouch! Ryu rubbed his head, complaining. But Mike Guy from the next class graduated a year ago, didn't he? Back then, his physical skills, I felt, were even worse than mine. At least Mike Guy knows how to use ninjutsu. Can you? Chen Beijun glared at him irritably. The graduation exam definitely tests basic ninjutsu application, especially the three-body technique. You can't even do the most basic shadow clone technique. What are you going to use for the exam? Go up there and show off your muscles. Chen Beijun's words hit the nail on the head. Mike Guy is indeed a master of taijutsu, but he is not completely incapable of ninjutsu. Ryu's situation is even more special. Like Guy's father might die, and the later hard-working genius Rock Lee, he has a congenital obstacle in the form and nature transformation of chakra, making it almost impossible for him to use any conventional ninjutsu. The reason why Long was able to become a ninja later was probably because the Konoha higher-ups took special care of Chen Beijun. the Konoha dragon god and a top Taijutsu jonin, and guaranteed his status. But that's another story. Ah, then does that mean I'll never graduate? Hearing the teacher ruthlessly point out the cruel reality, Long felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His excitement just now was instantly extinguished, and he felt that his future was bleak. We'll figure something out later. Chen Beijun rolled his eyes. For now, just give up on the idea of graduating early. Focus on building a solid foundation and getting stronger. Teacher Chen is right, Ryu. Shinichi also spoke up to comfort him, his tone sincere. The foundation of a Taijutsu-type ninja lies in physical fitness. You are currently in the golden period of building your foundation and growing stronger. Spend more time making your body more robust, so that even if you only know Taijutsu, you will be able to handle many more situations and environments when you become a ninja in the future. And you. Hey kid. Chen Beijun's attention returned to Shinichi, and his tone unusually earnest. I know you're a true genius with outstanding strength. At your current level, even after you graduate, you'll definitely be among the top tier of Chunin. He paused, his voice deepening. But you must remember, in the ninja profession, strength and talent alone are far from enough. Missions are ever-changing, enemies are cunning, and underestimating your opponent and being complacent are often shortcuts to your grave. The outside world is 1,000 times more brutal than the classrooms and training grounds of the Ninja Academy. Always remain vigilant, never underestimate any opponent, and never overestimate your luck. Understand? Jenny's expression turned serious. Meeting Chen Beijun's gaze, he nodded solemnly. I understand, Teacher Chen. Thank you for your teachings. I will keep them in mind. Seeing his upright attitude, Chen Beijun's expression softened slightly. He nodded, pondered for a moment, and seemed to have made a decision before saying, Make sure you survive. When you are promoted to Chunin, then I will teach you a new Taijutsu technique. New martial arts techniques. Shinichi's heart stirred. Over the past year, he had been studying under Chen Beijun and had mastered a great deal of the exquisite physical techniques of Konoha steel fist style. Is he the dragon god of Konoha? He suppressed the turmoil in his heart and respectfully bowed his head again, replying, Yes, I understand, Teacher Chen. I will try my best. Chen Beijun said no more, just waved his hand, indicating that they could continue practicing or dismiss. He then turned around and swayed as he walked out of the training field. Chapter 19. Planning. Name, Shinichi Higashina. Occupation, Swordsman Ninja Academy student. Talents, Genius blue, Intuition green, Auspicious Omen green, Big Eater green, Diligence can make up for lack of talent green, Quick-witted green, Innate super strength green, Thick skin and thick flesh green, Swift as a rabbit green, Swordsmanship proficiency green, Affinity white, Calmness white, Wind release basics white, Taijutsu basics white, Fire release basics white. Walking along the path home, the setting sun stretched his shadow long. Shinichi habitually sank his mind into the depths of his consciousness, summoning the personal panel that only he could see. Compared to 2 years ago, there are significant changes on the panel. Thick skin green has replaced the former resilience white. Swift as a rabbit green is an upgrade from agility white. Big Eater green is derived from foodie white, and spiritual sense green is derived from sensitivity white. In addition, a brand new white entry has appeared on the panel. Fire Release Basics, white. Your perception of fire-style chakra is more acute, and your control is smoother. Your efficiency and success rate when learning and performing basic fire-style ninjutsu are slightly improved. This entry's characteristics are similar to the Wind Release Basics, white, he obtained in his early years, except that it corresponds to the fire attribute. Shinichi was initially somewhat surprised by its creation, as he had originally intended to create a more comprehensive entry, such as basic ninjutsu. But upon closer reflection, the reason might be that in the past 2 years, in all the competitions and assessments at school, he has consistently used fire release ninjutsu the most frequently, and perform the best. In the eyes of classmates and teachers, the impression that Shinichi Higashino is very good at fire release techniques is probably more specific and profound than the more generalized perception that he is very good at ninjutsu. The term system once again demonstrates its generation logic based on specific perceptions. Another phenomenon that made him think was that the physical skills basics, white, entry had not been upgraded to green despite his continuous demonstration and improvement of physical skills over the past 2 years. It can only be said that when Shinichi fought Kakashi, the effect of his swordsmanship directly defeating the White Fang's sword technique, using the world-famous White Fang of Konoha as a stepping stone, was even greater and more lasting than he had imagined. In that battle, his brilliance in swordsmanship even overshadowed his solid physical skills to some extent. When people mention his physical skills, they might praise his excellent foundation and great strength, but the deeper admiration and labels they have are more drawn to his swordsmanship. As for entries related to illusion techniques, it's not that he didn't want to create them, but there was a Kurenai Yuhai in his grade who not only had high talent in illusion techniques, but also had a father who was a jonin in illusion techniques. Shinichi couldn't think of any way to overshadow the brilliance of this illusion genius, especially since his initial focus was on developing physical attributes. After Uchiha Shisui enrolled in the academy, Shinichi lost all interest in developing a character with genjutsu abilities. Shinichi turned his gaze away from his personal panel. Through more than 2 years of continuous cognitive management and refinement, he is well aware that the entries on his panel are far from being rich or perfect. If he had enough time, he could create more white entries like carving jade, slowly nurturing each white entry to green, and even try to reach the higher blue realm, making the foundation impeccable. However, time is running out. Based on his calculations, using fragmented information from the original work and the average graduation age of his class, it will be more than a year before the fragile stability of the ninja world is completely shattered. This was the fundamental reason why he decided to graduate early. His original plan was to solidify his foundation before graduating. But as I said before, time is running out. Step 1. Graduate early and become a genin. At that time, the job title Ninja Academy student will naturally advance to genin. The increase in job level will inevitably bring more significant all-round enhancements related to ninja talents. In addition, according to previous patterns, career advancement is almost always accompanied by a chance to draw a brand new, directly obtainable green attribute that can immediately strengthen his ability system. Step 2. Quickly advance to Chunin level. This plan was even more radical. He intended to try to participate in the Chunin exams in the same year he graduated and became a genin, or through other feasible means, strive to be promoted to Chunin as quickly as possible. If successful, the genin attribute will be upgraded to Chunin again. This not only means that the related benefits brought by the profession will leap forward again, but more importantly, starting from Chunin, there may be a chance to trigger a higher level of draw, the blue attribute draw opportunity. If everything goes smoothly according to this plan, when the situation in the ninja world truly begins to deteriorate in a little over a year, he will possess a stronger boost to the Chunin class attribute, a new green entry obtained from promotion to genin, a new blue keyword that may be obtained from Chunin promotion. The combined effect of these three factors will lead to a significant leap in strength, enabling him to face the impending trials of blood and fire with greater confidence and power, and to possess stronger self-protection capabilities in the early stages of turmoil. So the next entry should be the last one I generate during my time at the Ninja Academy. Shinichi snapped out of his thoughts and turned his gaze to his hands. At this moment, he was slowly twirling two solid black iron balls in his palm, a habit he had suddenly developed more than a year ago. To outsiders, this is simply a training method, using the rotation and friction of the iron ball to activate the joints and muscles of the fingers, palms, wrists, and elbows, enhancing their flexibility and strength, which in turn benefits the hand seal speed that is crucial for ninjas. While this reasoning is valid, Shainishi's purpose goes far beyond that. His deeper intention was to accomplish something that would shake the entire Hidden Leaf village, thereby creating a comprehensive entry on ninjutsu. Although he had only generated attribute-specific entries like fire release basics, instead of the more comprehensive entries he had hoped for, which made him feel that his plan had not been fully realized, he was not discouraged. In fact, he had long planned how to create and ultimately generate a powerful, comprehensive ninjutsu entry. This plan could even be traced back to shortly after he entered the Ninja Academy. It is a long-term plan that requires extensive research and will be launched at a specific time. The trigger point was the opening ceremony of the new semester, which took place a few days later. If everything goes smoothly and his plan is realized, then what will be produced will likely not be white or even green. It's a blue-level, general, ninjutsu entry. This will be the last entry he meticulously crafted during his time at the Ninja Academy, and also the most significant farewell gift for his early graduation. Chapter 20, Rasengan. With the Lunar New Year holiday over, the Konoha Ninja Academy has ushered in a new semester. In this world, the school year is divided into 3 semesters: April to July, September to December, and January to March, same as in real Japan. It's January, the start of the school year, a time when winter is giving way to spring. At the opening ceremony, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, attended as usual and delivered an important speech. This elderly man, who had been in charge of Konoha for many years, would always say something to the children at the start of each school year. He not only talks about the inherited philosophy of the will of fire, but also often shares interesting stories and insights from his training, as well as some popular yet practical ninjutsu insights, making his speeches anything but boring. During his speech, he would occasionally randomly select a few students to answer their questions, and this year was no exception. In training ninjutsu, we often focus too much on the power of the techniques. The third Hokage used simple, yet slightly humorous language to explain some basic but profound truths. After finishing his explanation of his insights on ninjutsu, he paused, his kind gaze slowly sweeping over the students lined up neatly below the stage, preparing to select a few children who raised their hands, as usual. At that moment, a student in Class 2, Grade 3, who calmly raised his hand, instantly caught his attention. Shinichi Higashino. The third Hokage's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Then he smiled even more kindly and gently raised his hand in that direction, indicating, "This student from Class 2, Grade 3, please stand up. Do you have any questions or opinions you'd like to share?" Shinichi stood up, bowed respectfully towards the podium, and then, with a perfectly measured mix of confusion and uncertainty on his face, said, "It's like this, third Hokage. For the past 2 years, I've been trying to develop a new ninjutsu. In the end, well, I could say I succeeded, but you could also say I failed, because I discovered that this technique seems to have a huge problem that I can't solve on my own." "Oh, developing new ninjutsu." The third Hokkage's smile widened, carrying an encouraging tone. "It seems this student is quite the adventurous genius." He praised her in a kind tone, but deep down he didn't really care. In his view, this so-called new technique is mostly a superficial modification or combination of existing techniques. Reaching the C level is already rare, and touching the B level threshold is even rarer. "Excuse me, what's your name?" the third generation asked in a gentle voice, as if hearing it for the first time. "Shinichi Higashino." "Well then, Shinichi," the third Hokage nodded. Why don't you explain in more detail, or perhaps demonstrate your new technique? Let me see where the problem lies, and maybe I can give you some advice. Upon hearing this, Shinichi hesitated, glancing hesitantly at the crowded student queue around him, as if he wanted to say something but then stopped. The third Hokage understood and smiled. It seems that Shinichi's new technique is quite powerful and impressive, so it's not convenient to demonstrate it here. How about this, Shinichi? Come up to the stage. Yes. Shinichi responded, stepped out of the class line, walked through the crowd, and headed towards the podium. At the same time, suppressed murmurs arose from below the stage. Shinichi, he actually developed a new ninjutsu on his own. As expected of Shinichi, I always felt like he knew a lot. So it was him, that ruthless guy. Every morning when I come to school, I see him using shadow clones to beat himself up. Is he the Shinichi Higashino who defeated Kakashi back then? It's just luck. Kakashi-senpai has already been promoted to Chunin, and he's definitely much stronger than him now. The two of them are on completely different levels. What kind of ninjutsu did he develop? Didn't you give him any guidance? The class teacher asked curiously. I don't know. The child never mentioned it to me. Ms. Matsumoto shook her head. Whispers of amazement, curiosity, and doubt flowed through the crowd. All eyes focused on the young man's back as he steadily walked toward the podium. Shinichi, use your ninjutsu. Don't worry, I'm right here, the third Hokage said, with an encouraging smile and gentle eyes. The two advisors, Mitakado Hamura and Utatane Koharu, who were accompanying the group, also cast curious glances over. Yes. Shinichi took a deep breath, his expression becoming focused. He slowly raised his right hand, his 5 fingers naturally spread out. At first, only an invisible current of energy gathered slightly towards the palm, as if condensing chakra. What? Upon seeing this, the third Hokage initially let out a soft exclamation, but the next instant, the amiable smile on his face vanished abruptly. Not only him, but also Mitakado Hamura and Utatane Koharu, who were standing next to him, changed their expressions almost simultaneously. On Jenny's palm, the invisible chakra gathered and quickly became visible to the naked eye. It transformed into rapidly flowing, highly compressed streams of Ajna chakra and began to spin at an astonishing speed. Buzz! A low, trembling sound, as if the air were being torn apart and then condensed, faintly rose. In the blink of an eye, a pale blue ball of light, about the size of a fist and composed entirely of highly condensed and wildly spinning chakra, was already floating in his palm. Inside the sphere of light, clear lines of chakra swirled and roared like a storm, creating visible turbulent air currents that ruffled Shinichi's sleeves and the strands of hair on his forehead. Rasengan. The new technique that Shinichi mentioned was none other than this high-ranking, hand-sealless ninjutsu that was developed by the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, in the future, inspired by the tailed beast ball and classified as an A rank. At this point in time, Minato Namikaze may have been conceiving the technique, or perhaps it had just begun, but the technique was certainly not yet complete, much less yet seen in the world. Note: the original work clearly demonstrates the principles and practice process of the Rasengan. Phase 1, gathering phase. Gather chakra in your palm. The second stage, the balloon stage. Releasing chakra causes the water inside the balloon to move erratically until the balloon explodes. The third stage, the ball stage. Maintain the released chakra and materialize it until the ball can be broken. In the final stage, combine everything from the previous stages. Gather high-density chakra in your hand, continuously release and maintain it, and finally solidify it to form a high-density chakra ball. However, after completing the third ball phase, Shinichi failed to enter the final phase, presumably because there are some techniques involved in the Rasengan that were not shown in the anime. So he added a fourth stage, iron ball practice. After successfully breaking the iron ball, he also successfully used a stable racing gun. In other words, with the support of various attributes centered around the word genius, Shainish's talent and aptitude are those of a true absolute genius. Otherwise, even with the corresponding ideas and methods, it would be difficult for him to develop the racing gun on his own. Shainish's plan is to take advantage of this time before Minato Namikaze has developed the Rasengan, an A-rank ninjutsu, and then showcase it in a public setting, the opening ceremony, in front of the entire school and the Konoha leadership, creating a sensation. This directly generates a comprehensive entry related to ninjutsu skills. Aye. Chapter 21, Dayama Rasengan. No hand seals. This is a ninjutsu without hand seals. Good heavens, the ninjutsu he developed is actually a ninjutsu without hand seals. In the audience, a sharp-eyed senior student noticed that Shinichi hadn't formed any hand seals. He exclaimed in surprise, instantly igniting a shock throughout the entire venue. The concentration and rotation speed of that chakra, it's terrifying. Just looking at it makes its power seem incredible. The crowd erupted instantly, a cacophony of astonishment, disbelief, and fervent curiosity blending into a buzzing sound. On the podium, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, after his initial shock, now had an unprecedentedly sharp light in his eyes as he stared intently at the pale blue chakra ball. But this is not over yet. Shinichi gritted his teeth, let out a low shout, and suddenly raised his right hand, which was holding the racing gun, upwards. Boom! As if injected with even more violent energy, the pale blue sphere, originally the size of a palm, suddenly burst out with an even more dazzling light, and its size expanded at an astonishing speed. The swirling chakra flow emitted an even deeper and more intense roar. The air was wildly churned, and a piercing howl was emitted. In the blink of an eye, the chakra ball expanded from the size of a fist to the terrifying size of a head. The rapidly circulating chakra lines within became clearer and more chaotic, emanating a terrifying aura that sent chills down one's spine. Dayama Rasengan. I want you not only to feel the danger, but I want all of you to truly experience what extreme danger means. The Rasengan is quite powerful, but its size is too small. Unless you are hit by it, it is difficult to give people a shocking effect at first glance. The giant Rasengan, however, is different. Its power and oppressive aura are immediately apparent. Woohoo! As the giant chakra sphere fully took shape, the wind above the training ground became violent, and the turbulent air currents stirred up dust on the ground and made the hems of people's clothes rustle. A palpable sense of oppression, accompanied by the unstable light and booming sound emanating from the massive chakra sphere, clearly enveloped the entire venue. If the Rasengan just now only impressed people with its simplicity and exquisite design, and made them feel that its power must be very strong. At this moment, the giant Rasengan, the size of a head and exuding a destructive aura, caused the expressions of all the teachers and students present, whether they were freshmen or experienced teachers, to change drastically. It was no longer a theoretical good or potentially strong feeling, but a direct, overwhelming, and terrifying sense of deadly threat. The Chunin level instructors at the Ninja Academy had their pupils contract, and their bodies instinctively went into a state of alert. Some students were so shocked by the terrifying chakra fluctuations that they couldn't help but take a few steps back, their faces drained of color. What level of ninjutsu is this? That's terrifying chakra. How could he possibly control it? Are you kidding me? Is this really a technique a student could develop? Exclamations rose and fell, but most people held their breath, staring intently at the chakra ball on the stage that resembled a small storm, and the black-haired boy in the eye of the storm who seemed to be struggling to maintain it. The third Hokkage's body was completely taut, and his two advisors stood up abruptly, their faces filled with disbelief and shock. At this moment, the third Hokkage noticed the instability of the energy ball and the boy's gradually paling face. Without any hesitation, he stepped forward, placing one hand firmly on Shainishi's trembling shoulder, while the other hand covered the dangerous giant Rasengan. A gentle yet immense amount of chakra intervened, guiding and dispersing it in an exquisitely subtle way. The terrifying chakra sphere rapidly shrank and dimmed, eventually dissipating into the air as a gentle breeze. Koharu Yan, you two continue presiding over the ceremony. The third Hokkage gave a low order without turning his head. Then he turned to Shinichi, who was pale and panting, and the sternness on his face turned into a deep gentleness. Child, come with me. Without giving anyone time to react, he took Shinichi and quickly left the noisy ceremony site under the shocked, bewildered, and awe-inspiring gazes of the teachers and students. That child is too reckless. How dare he develop and try such a dangerous ninjutsu all by himself? Koharu Utatane said, with lingering fear as she watched them leave. It was indeed a bit impulsive and risky. Mitakado Hamura adjusted his glasses, his eyes behind the lenses becoming much sharper. But Haru, it seems our Konoha has produced an extraordinary genius. With Shinichi being personally taken away by the third Hokkage, the two advisors continued to preside over the opening ceremony. But the intellectual storm that Zhenyi stirred up could never be quelled. Rank A, that's definitely the kind of energy only rank a ninjutsu can produce. Note, the one behind it is even bigger. It might even be S-class. Although it's extremely unstable, the sense of oppression it exudes. On the teacher's table, the knowledgeable Chunin teachers exchanged their views. Soon, the news that third-year student Shinichi Higashino has independently developed an A-rank ninjutsu without hand seals, and may even be an unstable S-rank ninjutsu, swept through every corner of Konoha like the fiercest wildfire. And at the center of this storm, Shinichi Higashino, he was standing in the Hokkage's office. He lowered his head slightly, his hands hanging uneasily at his sides, his face bearing the unique expression of a young man who had caused a great disaster, a mixture of lingering fear, tension, and helplessness. The third Hokkage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had taken in everything, had already sat back down behind his large desk. His expression became incredibly peaceful, even carrying the kind of benevolence unique to elders. He spoke slowly, his gentle voice breaking the silence of the room. Shinichi, there's no need to be so tense. Relax and sit down. He gestured to the chair opposite him. I brought you here not to scold you, but because I have some questions about that technique that I'd like to discuss with you. Yes, yes, third generation lord, Shinichi quickly responded, and sat down properly in the chair opposite the desk, placing his hands neatly on his knees, just like a good student listening attentively to a lecture. Have you named this ninjutsu yet? The third Hokkage picked up his teacup, took a sip, and spoke casually as if chatting. Rasengan, third Hokkage, I've named it Rasengan, Shinichi replied. Rasengan, a spinning ball of chakra, a very fitting name. The third Hokkage nodded approvingly, put down his teacup, and looked at Shinichi with gentle eyes. So, Shinichi, can you tell me how you came up with and ultimately developed this Rasengan? Yes, third Hokkage. Shinichi paused briefly to recall before speaking, speaking of which, I have to thank Asuma for the inspiration he gave me. Oh, the third Hokkage's eyes flickered slightly. And what about my son? The story begins 2 years ago. Okay. Chapter 22. Higashino Shinichi's Light Blade Activation, Super Dance Raw Spiral Ball. About 2 years ago, during a practical assessment, I saw Asuma condense his chakra to a high degree and stably attach it to his two blades when he was fighting his opponent, forming blue glowing chakra blades with astonishing power. Shinichi recalled. At that time, I was thinking, Since chakra can be so highly concentrated in a weapon, is it possible to compress and condense it directly in the palm of the hand without the aid of external objects, forming a completely new type of ninjutsu that can be activated barehanded? Isma, highly cohesive. The third Hokage suddenly remembered the pair of chakra blades he had given his son as a birthday present, Shinishimonji. Immediately, a sense of lingering fear and reproach arose in his heart. This child was too bold. Asuma used a specially made chakra metal blade as a carrier and guide. He actually dared to directly use his flesh and blood to attempt to simulate that high-density chakra transformation, if he didn't control it well. Although his mind was racing, the third Hokage maintained a calm expression and did not interrupt Shinichi, but continued to listen attentively. After having this idea, I started to try it. At first, it was very simple. I tried to gather chakra in my palm, but it was scattered and formless, without any power. Then I thought that chakra needs to be restrained and have a form. So I tried using a water sphere. Inside the closed water sphere, I made the chakra move violently and disorderly until the water sphere burst open from the inside. The third Hokage nodded slightly. This first step was a clear and correct approach, touching upon the basics of chakra form transformation. After successfully creating the water ball, I felt it lacked stability, so I switched to a more durable leather ball, aiming to maintain a certain amount of chakra output and make it materialize in my palm, continuously impacting the inside of the leather ball until it burst. This stage took a long time and required very precise control, Shinichi continued. After the ball was successfully used, he paused, seemingly recalling the predicament at the time. I felt that something was still missing, and it always seemed to be separated from the stable cohesion I had imagined. Later, I thought of using a harder iron ball. Iron ball. So that's how it is. Only then did the third Hokage understand why this child, whom he had been paying close attention to, had suddenly developed the habit of playing with an iron ball more than a year ago. He had initially thought it was just a diligent way to train finger and wrist dexterity and assist in hand seal formation, but it turned out there was a deeper purpose behind it. This child's talent far exceeds my expectations. Suppressing the shock in his heart, the third generation stated calmly and affirmatively, I see. To draw inspiration from observation, dare to put it into practice, and even come up with such a gradual cultivation method is a very valuable quality and talent. He changed the subject. However, Shinichi, from my observation, the first Rasengan you showed, the size of a fist, has actually achieved a very stable and exquisite balance in terms of chakra shape changes and control. It can be said that your ninjutsu is already very mature and successful. Mature, successful. Shinichi's face showed obvious surprise and confusion, as if he had never expected to receive this evaluation. Seeing his reaction, the third Hokage immediately understood the crux of the matter and couldn't help but chuckle and shake his head. It seems, Shinichi, you've misunderstood something. In your view, the larger Rasengan in the back and the smaller Rasengan in the front are two forms of the same technique, or rather, the former is an unfinished product, and the latter is a finished product that you strengthen to make up for its shortcomings, right? Two ninjutsu, but the third Hokage. Shinichi frowned, his face full of confusion, and he explained urgently. That small Rasengan, while powerful, doesn't condense quickly enough and has a limited attack range. In my opinion, its flaws are obvious, and it can't be considered a successful ninjutsu that can be used in actual combat. That's why I was thinking about whether I could forcibly expand its size and range of influence by injecting more chakra to cover up these shortcomings, but it's too unstable. The third Hokage listened quietly as he finished speaking, his smile gentle and wise, and slowly shook his head. Shinichi, this isn't a problem with the technique itself. His voice was calm, yet carried a convincing power. The problem is, you're still too young. Shinichi was slightly taken aback. Your total chakra reserves are still insufficient compared to the requirements of this technique. Your mastery of chakra control is also still developing. The third Hokage patiently explained, recounting the principles of this ninjutsu. As you grow older and your body and mind mature further, your chakra reserves will naturally increase, and your control will improve with training and experience. At that time, you will be able to condense it faster in battle and even achieve near instantaneous release. And that larger Rasengan, with the increase in chakra and the improvement in your control, will eventually become stable and controllable. He paused, his eyes revealing a glimmer of hope for the future, and his tone carrying a hint of encouragement. Furthermore, based on this Rasengan, when your understanding of chakra nature transformation is deep enough, you can try to infuse it with nature transformations of wind, fire, and other chakra attributes. At that time, the Rasengan will truly transform into an ultimate S-rank ninjutsu. I have high hopes for you on this path. Shainishi's initial confusion was gradually replaced by realization and shock, which then transformed into a burning sense of encouragement. He took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. I understand. Thank you for your guidance, third Hokage. I will continue to work hard and move in that direction. The third Hokage nodded with satisfaction, but then his expression turned slightly serious, and he earnestly advised, Shainishi, you are a rare genius, full of creativity and courage to put things into practice, which is excellent. However, independently developing high-level ninjutsu, especially those involving high-density chakra transformations, carries extremely high risks. If you have new ideas in the future or encounter difficulties in your cultivation, don't always bury yourself in your own work. You can consult your teachers at school, the elders in your village, and if you really encounter problems you can't solve. The third Hokage looked into his eyes and said gently but clearly, You can also ask me. Aye. That evening, in the Hokage's office. You'll regret this. Boom. No one knows why Danzo Shimura, the advisor, met with the Hokage. All that is known is that, faced with a certain request from him, the third Hokage became genuinely angry, showing no mercy and telling him to get out without any room for negotiation. A few days later, Minato Namikaze, who had just returned home from a mission, was approached by Jiraiya in Konoha. Minato, I heard there's a child whose idea coincides with yours. Jiraiya recounted the story of how Shinichi Higashina developed the Rasengan, while Minato Namikaze listened quietly, his eyes gradually filled with surprise and admiration. After listening, he exclaimed sincerely, That child is truly a remarkable genius. However, while the name Rasengan is quite good, it doesn't seem quite fitting. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, asking with interest, Oh, so what do you think it should be called? Minato Namikaze pondered for a moment, his eyes gleaming, and said, word by word, Shinichi Higashino's light blade activation, dancing raw spiral ball. We should add super in the middle. Higashino Shinichi light blade launch, super dance raw spiral ball. Jiraiya. Chapter 23, Early Graduation. 1 week later. Lying on his bed, Shainishi's gaze fell quietly on the newly generated line of green text on his personal panel. Ninjutsu Proficiency, green, increases your speed of learning and mastering ninjutsu. Your perception and application of chakra form and nature transformations are significantly enhanced, allowing you to learn and consistently execute ninjutsu of the corresponding element more quickly. The effect of this entry is undoubtedly very strong, and it will greatly benefit your future spiritual practice. However, although Shainishi's face remained calm, he could not hide his disappointment. It's not blue, it's just green. Why wasn't the sensation it caused enough? Or is it that the time was too short, and the cognitive fermentation was insufficient? He quickly dismissed both ideas. Although afterwards, out of consideration for protection and confidentiality, The Konoha leadership controlled the dissemination of specific information about the opening ceremony to some extent. Even so, the sensational effect of this event was no less than that of the battle in which he defeated Kakashi and established his reputation as a genius. So, where does the problem lie? Shainishi's thoughts drifted, his gaze inadvertently sweeping over the words Ninja Academy student in the job list. A nearly forgotten detail suddenly flashed into his mind. It was the notification that appeared on the panel when the job entries, Ninja Academy student and swordsmanship apprentice, were first generated. Based on the unlocking of the ninja, swordsman, class, from this point onward, the conversion efficiency of others' perceptions of your abilities related to your ninja, swordsman, class level determines the efficiency with which others' understanding of you is transformed. The highest possible class level. Your professional level determines how efficiently others perceive and convert your relevant skills. Jenny suddenly realized. Yes, unlike the term genius, which is not limited to any particular profession and covers all fields, proficiency in ninjutsu is a term that is clearly categorized under the category of ninja talent. What is his current ninja class level? It is the Ninja Academy student, which is the most basic and lowest level of trainee in the ninja system. This professional level limits the efficiency of converting knowledge of related skills into practical applications. Even though the outside world strongly recognizes him as a ninja prodigy, limited by his current professional platform, this massive cognitive effect cannot be efficiently transformed into a higher level blue keyword and ultimately only condenses into green. This also explains why the basic Taijutsu, white, skill level has been slow to upgrade, because Taijutsu is also a ninja skill. As for the battle with Kakashi, the focus of attention was on the second swordsmanship battle, so the basic swordsmanship, white, skill, which belongs to the swordsman profession, was also in the apprenticeship stage. However, due to that head-on collision with the White Fang Blade technique, and by using the legendary White Fang Blade technique as a stepping stone, the quality of his understanding was completely different, which allowed him to break through to the green level in one fell swoop. Looks like I'll have to be more careful in the future. A faint sense of emotion swept through Shainishi's mind. But even if he knew about this restriction beforehand, would he change his choice? Will not. Shainishi's gaze returned to calm. For him, the power he could first grasp was the best power. The tangible improvement brought by the green attribute, ninjutsu proficiency, is immediate and significant, making it far more valuable than a vague blue attribute that may not be generated due to insufficient conditions. Moreover, realistically speaking, even if he waits until graduation and his career transition efficiency improves from Ninja Academy student to genin, he may not encounter another such excellent cognitive trigger point as the opening ceremony, which gathers the attention of the entire school's teachers and students, as well as the Konoha leadership. At that time, it will probably be more difficult to generate the same level of public awareness, and the gains may not be greater than this time. There are gains and losses. Although this plan did not achieve its most ideal goal, the substantial benefits gained and the important understanding of the system's rules are already invaluable. Not to mention, it's an undeniable fact that he created the Rasengan at the age of 9, and this story will continue to be passed down, constantly providing him with relevant insights. At a certain point, his overall ninjutsu attribute will eventually be upgraded to blue level. He closed the panel and shut his eyes. Let's embrace green, for it's green. Next, it's time to move forward with the graduation process. 3 days later, Shanishi formally submitted his application to graduate early from the Ninja Academy. The news elicited a rather subtle reaction. Almost no one was surprised. Instead, there was a pervasive sense of that's how it should be, and it should have been done a long time ago. Many even privately wondered, why did he only apply now? This common mindset is not hard to understand. In most people's eyes, Shinichi Higashino should have graduated long ago. The genius who beat Kakashi. This title has been around for over 2 years. Now Kakashi Hatake, who was once defeated by him, has already been promoted to Chunin and has been active in missions for almost 3 years. In contrast, Shinichi's habit of staying at school obediently seems somewhat illogical. Not to mention the Rasengan he independently developed, which shocked the entire audience at the opening ceremony a few days earlier. A rank ninjutsu without hand seals, and even the potential to touch the threshold of S rank. This level of achievement has long exceeded what a Ninja Academy student should be capable of. In the eyes of everyone, it would be a waste of time and talent for such a monster who has created miracles one after another, and whose talent and strength are beyond doubt to continue to stay in the Ninja Academy to learn the basics step by step. His application to graduate early is not news. The fact that he only applied now is a little questionable. So when the application was officially submitted, everything seemed to fall into place smoothly and without any major issues, as if it were just something that should have happened a long time ago. However, when this application was officially submitted and placed on the Hokage desk, one person felt somewhat troubled by it, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. He had no doubt that Shinichi could pass the graduation exam. There was no need to even consider it. His original idea was to focus on cultivating a longer-term bond. He had observed that Shinichi had a harmonious relationship with his classmates, especially his deskmate Shizune and Takashi Ishizuka. He planned to put these kids in the same team when they graduated normally this year, so that the friendship they formed in their youth could be further deepened and solidified in the mission, which was in line with his long-held concept of comrades. Unexpectedly, Shinichi took the initiative to apply for early graduation. Seeing that he had been well behaved in the Ninja Academy for the past 2 years, it was thought that he would complete his studies step by step. This disrupted the third Hokage's initial plan. What kind of teammates should we assign him? The third Hokage tapped his fingertips lightly on the table, lost in thought. Kakashi. The name flashed through my mind, but was immediately rejected. He had other plans for Kakashi, and the boy now seemed like a closed-off, almost emotionless task machine. If he were to team up with Shin, not only would they fail to build a bond, but it might also negatively influence or even corrupt this promising young talent with a bright and sunny disposition. Their team formation may have to wait until the distant future, after Kakashi has changed. After a moment of contemplation, the third Hokage made a decision. As long as Shinichi had not yet become a Jonin by then, and his peers of similar age had successfully graduated, he would try to reassign them to the same squad and personally appoint a reliable Jonin as their instructor. Before that, let's find a senior figure for this child who has spread his wings too early, someone with strong political ideology, high awareness, the ability to maintain stability, and the capacity to guide the way. Since we can't rely on the bonds with peers for the time being, we'll make up for it with guidance from seniors. The third Hokage scanned the list in his mind and finally settled on one name. Chapter 24, Ominous Sign. Congratulations, child. With a kind smile, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, personally placed the headband symbolizing the ninjas of Konoha on Shinichi's forehead. From this day forward, you are a true Konoha ninja. Remember the way of the ninja, protect the village, and cherish your comrades. Yes, Lord Third Generation. After the simple ceremony, Shinichi turned and walked out of the classroom that was being used as a temporary examination room. As soon as he stepped out, a familiar commotion rushed over. Shinichi, congratulations on graduating. Great, from now on, I'll be a real ninja. As expected of you, Shinichi. Led by Ishizuka Ryuna's loud voice, a group of familiar classmates eagerly surrounded him. offering their congratulations in a lively and sincere atmosphere. Shinichi naturally smiled and nodded to the students who had gathered around him. Wait for me, Shinichi. Ryu clenched his fist tightly, his eyes burning with determination, his voice filled with conviction. I will soon catch up with you and become a true ninja. Shinichi, congratulations on your graduation. Shizune walked up from the side and back of the crowd with a smile on her face. She handed over a small, seemingly practical medical kit. These are some basic medical supplies and emergency medicines that I made myself. They might come in handy during a mission. Thank you, Shizune. Shinichi accepted the medical kit and expressed his gratitude. However, while expressing his gratitude, a slight sense of regret also crossed his mind. Over the years, through Long's connection, he successfully came into contact with and received guidance from Master Chen Beijun, which can be considered as opening a door to physical training. However, the expected progress failed to materialize on Shizune's side. He was unable to reach Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin, through Shizune. His relationship with Shizune was undoubtedly good, and Shizune would often complain to him about that unreliable Tsunade-sama. But Shizune never expressed any intention to introduce him. Shinichi, who has always cultivated a persona of diligent, down-to-earth, and not seeking personal gain, naturally doesn't take the initiative to do anything, so there hasn't been any substantial progress. As for Tsunade herself, Shinichi was well aware that the legendary female ninja who had lost her younger brother and lover, one after another, had long since closed herself off, immersed in her own world and pain, and was indifferent to most things in the outside world. Shizune, as Kato Dan's niece, was taken in by her, more as a sense of responsibility and a feeling of shared suffering. In this state, it's perfectly understandable that Tsunade wouldn't develop any extra interest in herself, this other people's genius child, nor would she bother to casually glance at her like teacher Chen did. However, Shinichi wasn't too disappointed. Cultivating interpersonal relationships, especially when interacting with people like this, requires both opportunity and patience. Maintaining a good relationship with silence is itself a valuable long-term foundation, quietly laid. Someday in the future, when the time is right, this wedge may take root and sprout, becoming a bridge connecting that treasure trove. Everyone, Shinichi raised his voice so that all the students around him could hear him clearly, to express my gratitude to the teachers for their guidance over the years, and to everyone for your companionship. I plan to hold a small gathering at the Ajino Takumi restaurant tomorrow afternoon. All the teachers, classmates, and elders who have helped me in the past are welcome to come and join us if you are free. He spoke casually, but those familiar with his style knew that this was likely to be another large-scale banquet. Just like the thank you banquet he held for his swordsmanship teacher 2 years ago, this has become his unique way of expressing gratitude and maintaining relationships. As for the cost, Shinichi certainly doesn't need to worry about it anymore. That day in the Hokkage's office, when the third Hokkage proposed including the Rasengan as an official Konoha ninjutsu, he asked Shinichi what kind of reward he wanted. Shinichi did not ask for ninjutsu or special privileges. Instead, he frankly requested a generous monetary reward, stating that he hoped to pay off his school loan and ensure that he could focus on his training without being bothered by worldly affairs for a period of time. This pragmatic and reasonable request was quickly approved. At this moment, he is quite well off financially. This banquet was held not only to express sincere gratitude, but also as a carefully planned declaration of identity and a refresh of perception, in order to promote the Ninja Academy student title to Genin as soon as possible. At the same time, it reinforces the impression of being loyal and grateful, which is beneficial and harmless. Aye. Ominous sign, green. Your fortunes are initially fraught with misfortune. You may occasionally sense minor, ominous signs and potential dangers. The time required for a Ninja Academy student to advance to Genin is much shorter than the time it took for a swordsmanship apprentice to advance to swordsman. That makes sense. He is now a promising talent that Konoha's higher-ups are paying close attention to, and he graduated under the personal witness of the third Hokage. So the relevant recognition would naturally come faster and more focused. When the opportunity to draw lots that accompanied his career advancement arrived, Shinichi followed his usual practice, carefully washing his hands, bathing and changing his clothes. After completing a set of seemingly devout but useless prayer rituals, he drew lots. The result was this green entry called Ominous Sign, which, like the previously drawn Auspicious Sign, belongs to the category of mysterious fortune. Judging from the description of the term, if auspicious omen is associated with the auspicious and favorable aspects of one's fortune, allowing one to occasionally perceive good signs and opportunities, then inauspicious omen corresponds to the inauspicious and dangerous aspects of one's fortune. Of course, this does not mean that the affixes have negative effects. Based on his personal experience over the years, Shinichi is convinced that all talent affixes generated by the panel are essentially some kind of positive buff. Only the areas of effect and the forms of expression are different. The term auspicious omen has been tested by him, intentionally or unintentionally, many times over the past 2 years. For example, his chances of winning at slot machines outside the village casino or at some luck-based games during village festivals were indeed higher than those of ordinary people, indicating that the auspicious sign was indeed subtly enhancing his luck. More importantly, it occasionally brings a vague sense of whim, suggesting that some opportunity or favorable turning point related to him may be about to appear. Following this logic, the mechanism of the ominous sign should be the opposite, yet both fall under the category of enhancement. It might not bring misfortune, but rather make him more sensitive to potential calamities, or perhaps make things more difficult for his enemies. Similarly, when a disaster or major crisis concerning him is brewing, an ominous sign may occasionally provide a warning, like a sudden whim or a change in air pressure before dark clouds appear. Though not specific, it is enough to raise alarm. After waiting at home for about 3 days, Shinichi finally received the specific notification regarding the team assignments. His teammates will join him at 7 a.m. tomorrow at Training Ground 6. The training ground. Shinichi put down the notification letter, lost in thought. It seems that this teammate, whom he has not yet met, intends to test his abilities first. Who could it be? With this curiosity in mind, he spent the night peacefully. The following morning, Shinichi, fully equipped with his usual gear, arrived at the 6th training ground on time. To his surprise, there was only one person waiting for him in the arena. He was a middle-aged ninja of medium build, dressed in simple brown clothes, and carrying a large iron pot conspicuously on his back. Their attire was somewhat peculiar, even carrying a touch of rustic humor. Upon first seeing this person, Shinichi felt he looked somewhat familiar but couldn't be sure. He stepped forward steadily and bowed respectfully, saying, "Hello, senior. I am Shinichi Higashino, here to report for duty today. Nice to meet you." The middle-aged man turned around, a very kind, even somewhat unassuming smile on his face. His tone was unusually gentle for a ninja. "Oh, Shinichi Higashino, I know you. Everyone in the village is saying that a remarkable genius has emerged." He scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed. "I never expected to be assigned to a group with a good-for-nothing old man like me. I'm sorry to trouble you. My name is Kasuke Maruhoshi." Sure enough, it was him. Kasuke Maruboshi. Chapter 25. Kasuke Maruboshi. That person who has the title of Eternal Genin actually has a strength and experience that surpasses many Jonin. "You flatter me, senior," Shinichi said sincerely. "I've just become a ninja, and I need to learn a lot from experienced and seasoned ninjas like you." It's an honor to have the opportunity to team up with you. Haha, no need for formalities. Maruhoshi Kasuke waved his hand with a smile, a sharp glint flashing in his narrowed eyes. Although I don't know why the village put us in the same group, we'll be teammates who entrust our lives to each other from now on. This old man needs to get to know you properly first. Just listening to rumors isn't enough to be safe. How about this? We'll have a quick sparring session. The real test will show us the best results. In fact, given Maruboshi Kasuke's usual personality, he doesn't care who he teams up with, and he's too lazy to specifically test the capabilities of his new teammates. However, this time the situation was special. The third Hokage personally found him and earnestly instructed him that this child was a precious seedling carrying the will of fire, and that as his senior, he must teach him well. I've heard you're a swordsmanship prodigy, Maruhoshi Kasuke said, reaching behind him to the iconic large iron pot. He pulled out an antique-style samurai sword, holding it casually yet with the steadiness of a mountain. Coincidentally, I also know a little about swordsmanship, so let's start with swordsmanship. Senior, in my perception, your strength is very high, far exceeding what a genin can achieve. Upon hearing this, Shinichi took a deep breath and slowly adjusted his breathing and stance. His right hand, steady and firm, rested on the hilt of the sword at his waist, and he spoke. Therefore, I will give it my all in the next test. Oh, a hint of surprise flashed across Maruhoshi Kasuke's eyes, but he immediately remembered the rumors in the village about the child's sensory talent and understood. His kind smile remained unchanged, but his eyes darkened, and he nodded. Very well, come on, attack with the determination to kill me. Excuse me, senior. Before he finished speaking, Shinichi transformed into a black shadow that was almost impossible to catch with the naked eye. His blade flashed like cold lightning, slashing upwards from a tricky angle. The air was torn apart and wailed. Even before the blade arrived, his resolute sharpness was already overwhelming. This is a combination of the instantaneous movement technique and the draw-slash technique, the swift eye jutsu. There are also traces of the steel fist style in it. The experienced Kasuke, Maruboshi, instantly discerned the true nature of the strike. His response was effortless and masterful. Just as the sharp blade was about to strike, Maruhoshi Kasuke's wrist, which was holding the sword, seemed to move only slightly, yet his figure suddenly became ethereal, and the surrounding light seemed to be gently stirred and bent by an invisible force. It made him disappear from the spot.